Fearscape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Fearscape Media Network is your new home for everything weird and enlightening. Check out podcasts and YouTube shows covering content from discussions on horror films to the paranormal to meditation. Find out more at fearscapemedia.com.
Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basements may contain graphic, violent, vulgar, or explicit content not suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basement. I'm Anna.
And I'm Lindsay. On in.
All right. So our last episode, like we talked about, was a big one. We did our crossover with Fairy Tale Fix, and I personally think it was phenomenal.
It was so good.
We want to hear from you. Are you now listening to Fairy Tale Fix? If not, you should be.
Definitely should be. I'm actually wearing my Fairy Tale Fix hoodie right now. You can't see it. There
Nice.
I love it so much.
I'm wearing pajamas.
I had to get changed because I was wearing just like leggings and a shirt
Yeah.
because I was just around the house. And I picked up my husband's work boots. And then like I was walking and like my hand just brushed. My hand was covered in grease.
Yum.
And so I had to change my clothes. And then I was like, well, I'm getting dressed anyways. I'm going to go to Starbucks.
Yep.
Oh. I've got Starbucks.
I have Coca-Cola because I'm out of Red Bull. It's a sad
I still have
day.
caramel brulee.
I thought they were out of that or
I
stopped
did
making
too.
that.
Or like it's a winter holiday drink.
Right.
And so I always do mobile order because I hate ordering things. And that and the drive-through line was long, so I just pulled into a parking space, mobile ordered, ran inside.
Right.
And I was so shocked that caramel brulee was like a recommended thing because I order it all the time when it's around. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, I can still get this? Okay.
Nice.
That was a nice little surprise. I thought that would be gone by now.
Right. That's like me trying to find a 20-ounce sugar-free Red Bull. Lord help. It's impossible. First of all, any 20-ounce Red Bulls, let alone a sugar-free one, is like hard to come by. I think there's a Red Bull shortage, and I'm not okay with it.
There's an everything shortage. Did I tell you the other day? My fingernail clippers went missing. They're probably somewhere in one of my kids' rooms. But my fingernail clippers went missing. And I had to do a curbside order for Target. And I was like, I'll just grab some fingernail clippers. I took them off my order. By the way, Target, you should have a way to say, oh, give me something similar instead of saying ship it to me or I don't want it. But that's a whole other conversation. But so I was like, okay, I'll just stop by the dollar store on my way to pick up my Target order and like I can grab fingernail clippers there. They will be probably pretty shitty. It'll work. They didn't have any either.
That's obnoxious.
They had like one pedicure set that had like the brush, the pumice stone, like all that, and like toenail clippers. And I was like, this is gonna have to do.
That's ridiculous.
Maybe my fingernail clippers will turn back up, but apparently there's a fingernail clipper shortage, at least in my area, at the whole 2 stores I checked.
Yeah.
I will admit I didn't put in much effort.
Well, it happens.
Yeah, it does.
Oh,
But-
goodness. So, do you want to tell everybody what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so when we did our Ted Bundy episode for Anna's birthday,
It was
which was
so
not
great to hear all the messages, by the way. Thank you for
Aw,
that.
I'm glad you liked that. And thanks to everybody who sent in clips to me. That was awesome of you, and I loved it. Some of them almost made me cry, especially your husband's.
Yes.
Ugh.
He did make
Anyways.
me cry.
The Ted Bundy episode, which was not our last episode because that was Fairy Tale Fix, but the one before it. obviously, huge case. We couldn't even give it the time that we felt was necessary, like, to honor his victims and whatnot. But I had mentioned at the end, like, maybe I didn't mention, but I meant to mention, I don't really remember, about how it kind of opens up a whole other conversation that we have always said on this show, but we wanted to dedicate at least part of an episode kind of elaborating and having a more in-depth conversation about. And that is about ethics in true crime coverage and like the sensationalism of true crime and basically all the whole like why we're so against like the oh my god Ted Bundy crowd.
Well, it's not even just that. There's this TikTok, and I don't know who started it, and I've seen multiple people use the sound clip. So good on that creator for getting, views and plays. But it goes along the lines of what, these women, they fall asleep to true crime and it relaxes them. Okay,
Or it
I'm guilty
teaches
of
them
that.
how to murder.
Yeah, I'm guilty of falling asleep to listening to podcasts because my brain can only listen to things before I get too relaxed and then I pass out. That's TV, that's books, that's anything.
Yeah,
Um, I don't find true crime relaxing. I find it interesting
exactly.
because it's fascinating how somebody can go from, as they're always described, a normal, somewhat normal most of the time, guy next door, girl next door, whatever.
So
I had
nice.
no
Wouldn't
idea.
hurt a fly.
Yeah, I would have never guessed. Well, people are capable of horrible things. That's what it boils down to.
Absolutely.
And anybody, anybody is capable of horrible things. I'm sure you've done things in your life that you're not super proud of. They may not be murder, but I'm sure there are things that you regret doing in your life. And you're like, damn it, if I had a time machine, I would go back and like slap myself and be like, no, don't do that. But
Right. Sure.
for people to say that women, first of all, we have a lot of men listening to our show, by the way, not just women,
Right.
and a lot of age demographics that listen to us as well. I don't know about other podcasts. I don't get to see their analytics, but with all of that being said, there's more than just podcasts. There's documentaries, there's shows like Dexter and You. There's shows.
Oh, I have so much to say about the show You on this episode.
Yeah, right. But there's so many shows like Dexter. I didn't watch it because it wasn't interesting to me. Yeah, I know. Come for me. Come for me. I don't care.
I've
It was
only
not
seen like
interesting.
bits and pieces. I'd never
I
was
don't
like
think I
into
like
it.
the actor guy that whatever his name is that plays Dexter. He's just, I don't know. He gives creepy vibes, which I mean is probably the point. But Anthony Michael Hall, I think probably wrong. But either
I have
way,
no idea his name. I know
um
exactly who you're talking about, but I don't know his name.
it it just there's a lot of shows that sensationalize murder and make it fascinating to viewers, and there's shows like CSI and things that go into the
SVU.
SVU that go into the investigation portions and the crimes and how to solve those crimes. It's not like we woke up one day and said, "Hey, you know what? We have a very original idea." We're not the first people to touch ground here. And for people to say that women, especially, are listening to podcasts and watching documentaries so we can learn how to murder our husbands is just sick,
Yeah, and
honestly.
we've said it a lot of times. Like we've tried to figure out what it is about us personally is so intrigued by true crime, and a lot of it is probably just the idea of trying to make sense of something that does not make sense. You do also get into the aspect where it's a little bit more on the entertainment side of things, such as like CSI and SVU and all that, which is important to note is fiction. But I'll get into that. It, some of it's the intrigue and the mystery of what is this, what happened to this person, all of that kind of things.
The who
But
done
at the
it.
yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, it's I feel trying to make sense of something horrible that happens too often in this world.
Or, on the other hand, for anyone who isn't aware, females especially tend to have this problem where we're terrified to live.
Right.
At least in my opinion, I feel that way a lot. Like I have a fucking taser in my vehicle.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might
I
not
gave
even be like
face.
an active fear.
No,
but
but
we
we're
naturally
overly cautious
yeah.
because we've since childhood, stranger danger, etc. But there's sex trafficking, there's kidnappings and murders and fucking a plethora of things that I can't even fathom to think about right now. But
It's
the
kind of
whole
hardwired into our brains as women that we have to look at every side of it, not necessarily be paranoid, but be hyper aware. I mean, like, I was at Walmart the other day and some dude walked up to me and was like, "Are you single?" And I was like, no. But
he wasn't on the aisle when you got there. That's the
no,
point.
he
Is
had
like
come up the aisle. I thought I was in his way because I hear, "Excuse me." And I'm like, "Oh shit." Like, I'm in the middle of the aisle just sitting here trying to price check my item. Like, was gonna scoot. And then when I turned around, he was like, "I'm so sorry to bother you." And then he walked off. I made sure he was not looking at me. And I fucking booked it the opposite direction. And here's the
Yeah.
thing, that guy at Walmart was probably legitimately just trying to like shoot his shot and thought I was cute.
But
But
you never know, and
it's
that's
like, you
what's
never
scary.
know. And so I was like, I'm not going to be the next true crime documentary. And I booked it across the store and spent the
Well,
rest of my grocery shopping trip looking, make sure he wasn't around.
you had somebody block your van when you were trying to put groceries in your vehicle with your children in the last town that you lived in, and somebody, like an attendant at the store or something, had to
Oh,
make you fucking
the
move.
cart guy, the
Yeah,
cart
they
guy.
had to
And
make
they were
him
like
move.
asking me for directions or money, or it was something like really obscure. And I'm just like, "Excuse me." And the guy taking the carts back up to the store put the huge line of carts in between this car and me. And he was like, "You know this person?" I was like, "No, I don't." And the guy like drove off. But like, thank you to that grocery store cart return people. But yeah, like, you have to be like hyper vigilant because it's possible these people do really need help or think
And
you're
then there's
cute
cases like
or
Ted Bundy
whatever. Who,
where they
"Oh,
pretend to be injured
my broken leg and I
and
need my boat out of my car."
right, like,
How,
it's just
how did he have a boat in his car?
I don't even know.
Like, I never really thought that much into that scenario.
It
It was a boat that he said he had, right?
I think it was belt, but or something. I don't know. He needed
Like,
something out of his car.
on the beach, whenever he asked
Oh, yeah.
people, he said he had needed help with his sailboat or something.
Yeah, like, some of your shit
His VW Beetle.
right, like,
Like,
some of your shit
what?
makes no sense, and it's just like, being a woman myself, being hyper vigilant to stay safe, to make sure my children have been safe, like, it's just like an instinct in me to just be I don't know, I have a lot of anxiety, I have general anxiety disorder on top of a myriad of other things. But that being said, that's not why I'm anxious. I'm anxious because this girl I went to high school with, well, junior high anyway, uh, in a town like an hour and a half from here, went missing after she dropped her son off from school and she's never been found. I fucking knew her. She has never been found. And that's just the thing is like it could happen to you, it could happen to anyone, and that's why we dive into true crime to try to puzzle it out, to try to get a better sense of how to be more cautious. Like,
Red
look at
flags
the
to look for, like,
yeah, look at these red flags, like, be hyper aware, be hyper vigilant, and also, me personally, I think it's important that with our platform, we shine light on the victims. Not the murderer, the victims. Because, yeah, everybody knows Ted Bundy's name. How many of you knew his victims' names?
right.
That's kind of the problem. And I'm
Exactly.
not
And
blaming you, listeners. I'm just saying, like,
it's the way the true crime media
it's
has
it's
become.
how media has portrayed it. They portray the killer and give them infamy, and they don't go into this is the case of so and so. Well, except
I
like with John Benet Ramsey, like
was gonna say there are certain high
but that was
profile
unsolved.
cases.
But that was unsolved.
Exactly, and
Keep that in mind too.
I was also gonna mention, like, we've covered Maura Murray on here before, and it's the disappearance of Maura Murray, and the reason her name's front and center is because we don't know what happened to her, but you can't say the perpetrator's name.
Nope.
But that's the way it should be, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with saying the disappearance of Maura Murray. That's the way it should be.
It always should be the
Focus
case
should be.
of so-and-so.
Because here's the thing. It's like you had said, the girl in your town went missing. You know her. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's real people. It's affecting real people. There are people left behind by these crimes, whether it's somebody who survived an attack or like you knew somebody who went missing or was murdered or what have you. It's real people. It's not an episode of CSI.
No, it's not. And it's sad and it's heavy. Like, the world we live in is fucking heavy for so many reasons. Take COVID out of it. Take war. Take out a lot of things. Like, you're still left with homeless people. You're still left with, people that are starving. You're left with so many things. And then on top of it, you have to worry about getting fucking murdered.
We did a whole episode that was kind of this level of tone. And it was when we did the Aurora movie theater shooting. Because that is true crime that directly affected both of us.
Absolutely.
But also indirectly, and that's where I get you were still, okay, bring out my trauma-informed care training. Secondhand trauma. You were not at the movie theater. We did not lose somebody specifically, but we are in the community, but it affected us. And that's how it is.
And the community was greatly affected, by the way. It was devastating to not only just Aurora, but the surrounding communities as well.
Right.
I mean, people from all over the world go to Aurora to go to Buckley Air Force Base. And people go down to, what's the Air Force Base in?
Oh, Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs.
I can't think of the name of it right now.
Is it Peterson?
I have no idea.
Okay, I could be wrong. I think it's Peterson. But the point is, where there's military bases, it becomes sort of a bigger version of a melting pot just because people
who wouldn't ordinarily live there.
Yeah. And so it's just like, my husband was around the world when the Aurora shooting happened, and literally, and he was in Cambodia, I think, Vietnam, I don't know. He was somewhere far fucking away.
Right.
And he was panicked because I had no reason to be at that theater, but what if? There's always
the I mentioned on that episode, I had gone to the original Dark Knight premiere, and when the initial news story came out and they hadn't identified everybody publicly, they mentioned a family who was there with a baby. So my family is that very well could be her.
Yeah.
And so the whole point of us talking about this is not to rehash an episode we already told, to mention that every single topic of true crime has people left behind that were affected by it, whether directly in their community, friend of a friend, whatever. It's real people. And the way a lot of true crime, I feel, has tried to do better on that. And there's a lot of people who are great at being ethical and whatnot. And I'm sure we're not perfect. We're brand new at this. We try, obviously. But there is such a big amount where it's just entertainment and sensationalized and, dare I say, romanticized. And that's kind of gross.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of switching gears here. I'd mentioned the show You. And okay, first of all, don't come for me. I understand it's fiction. I understand that the TV show is based off of a book, which I have never read.
Me neither.
But the reason I only ever watched the very first season is because it felt like, to give Joe more story time, glorified that he was a killer.
Yeah, I agree. I only made it halfway through season 1, and I was like, you know what? This is not for me.
It stressed me out so bad. I have a really hard time with shows, even if I really like them, if it's so when it's realistic enough that I can put myself in that position and it stresses me the fuck out. Like, I was like that watching Good Girls.
Yeah.
Love that show. I don't remember what season I ended on. Like, I just couldn't take the stress.
I feel that.
And then I felt like that watching you a lot. And I can say, as a writer, I can appreciate unhappy endings. I can appreciate things getting dark and twisty and like all that. But I have to say, I have to give the show, at least, I'm assuming the book would be the same way, but the show, at least, like, I have to give them huge props because the way they wrote it made it to where even as you, the viewer, knows exactly what Joe does behind closed doors and in his little creepy basement, you still can fall for his charm. Like, there'd be like enough space in between those incidents, you kind of forget that he's like that.
Yeah.
And then when something happens, it's a little jarring, and you're like, oh yeah, he's a piece of shit. But it was good writing in the sense that you can then understand how people like Bex fell for him.
Yeah.
And which is important to understand because we've talked about that with Ted Bundy, like charming, called being a psychopathic narcissist.
Absolutely.
I do feel, though, while I can appreciate that from a writing standpoint, especially, there's a line that gets crossed. And, like, even the actor who plays Joe is like, no, don't like Joe. Because there's, like, things everywhere talking about, like, Joe always makes sure to text back, and he's murdering people. And it's like, ew, fuck, no.
No, not at all.
And I get it's jokes. But I do think that that's kind of like one of those lines that starts to get blurred where then when you get into real life crime stuff, it's, oh, well, Ted Bundy's really charming.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
it does.
because it's so, I guess, accepted in the fiction, it blurs that line of reality. Where at the end of the day, Joe is garbage just as much as Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy just happened to be real.
Absolutely.
And so, like, seeing the way people react to Ted Bundy and to Joe on you is good from a psychological standpoint, which obviously we're not psychological experts. It can get interesting, which is where, in my opinion, the entertainment form of true crime comes in. Like, that interesting, mind-boggling, how did they fall for it? And you kind of gives you a look into that from a fictional standpoint. But I would say, keep bringing it up because it makes me think so much of like how people treated and whatnot Ted Bundy. Like this handsome guy who's just like, oh, he would never, and then really he's horrible. But at least in season 1, like I said, I didn't watch past that. It's not worth it, in my opinion.
Right.
It is interesting to try to figure out where, like, how it can happen, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, with the rise of popularity of true crime, it just makes it harder to remember the difference. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like I'm like all over the place. Started to tell the difference between Joe on you and real horrible serial killers.
Right. And like, the world's not all bad. It's not. There's great, excellent, wonderful people out there who are compassionate and strong and giving. But some people are monsters. And
Yeah.
they don't have to be murderers or rapists or kidnappers to be monsters. Some people are just horrible. There's a reason why I
And
don't
some
fuck with
people
like a
are
lot of people.
horrible while still being quote unquote hot.
Right.
We've already talked about, even if Ted Bundy was not a serial killer, he's not attractive. Word.
No. And I feel especially being a part of the true crime community, having this podcast, and I mean, it's not just true crime that we cover. We also cover, paranormal stuff, which is a lot more lighthearted. But it's important to be aware of the difference between fact and fiction. And a lot of times people get their information from unreliable sources. So always check your sources. I'm talking to you people who post Facebook things that came out 2, 3, 4 years ago, and you think it happened yesterday. It didn't. Read the date. Check the date.
The number of times I've seen celebrities die year after year is the same celebrity who died 5 years ago.
Right.
But no, but back on the subject of true crime, and like you were talking about like, us as podcasters, and it's like I said earlier, I'm sure we're not perfect. I'm sure there's somebody out here who's like, you all aren't exactly the most ethical coverage people or whatever. But like we do try, and we try to remind everybody listening to us that we don't think true crime is cool.
No,
You know,
it's fascinating, it's interesting, it's like a puzzle we can't figure out,
right?
and sometimes there's happy endings and the people that get kidnapped get returned, but all in all, it wasn't a happy story.
I will say because, like I said, we're not experts on this subject. We're just trying to, I guess, learn how to be held accountable for the type of coverage we do, which I feel like we've done a decent job. I don't know.
I feel like we try really hard.
We try really hard, yeah. We're not sitting here like, "Oh my god," and then he killed her
Right.
or
Isn't
anything. And
that
I'm not
funny?
I'm also not accusing any other content creator of being like that, but,
No, but I'm
like,
sure
just
there's someone out
hypothetically
there.
speaking.
We just
Really,
don't listen to them.
right. So there's, a podcaster that I follow. Actually, it's, Sarah Turney. You've heard me talk about her so many times. You as in Anna, maybe not the
Yeah.
listeners. I found Sarah Turney on TikTok, which we find all great things on TikTok.
Yes.
And she was trying to seek justice for her sister's disappearance. Her sister is Alyssa Turney. I would highly suggest you look into her story, especially looking at Sarah's or listening to Sarah's podcast called Voices for Justice. Um, Basically, she went to social media and podcasting and stuff to try to get awareness for her case, for her family's case. And that's like really what lit the fire in her investigators to look into it. And now an arrest has been made, which is great. But her podcast has gone on to talk about like other missing people and other cases that deserve justice. And I am really, really behind on her podcast, to be completely honest. I'm behind on all podcasts.
Same.
But I will say last year, she was a panelist at CrimeCon 2021, where she and a couple of other people spoke about ethics and true crime coverage or reporting or whatever. And she has an episode of it on her podcast, Voices for Justice. And I'll have a link for it in the show notes. It's really, really good. I highly suggest you listening to that. But like they all basically agreed because it was Sarah Turney. I don't remember everybody who was on it. I apologize. But, it was other victims' family members and advocates and stuff like that. And they all just basically said the same thing, which is just remember it's real people. It's real people. Like, and I just can't, I always think about when I was listening to the episode of the podcast, I just kept thinking about Gabby Petito case and the number of conspiracy theories we kept seeing on TikTok about it. We
Absolutely.
called it out back at the time. We were like, quit it. That's somebody's family member, somebody's friend. You all are coming up with these wild theories. And it's the same thing with every single true crime case. And
And like 9 times out of 10, you're wrong. Like there'll be
yeah,
one person that has like a legitimate theory and it maybe will go somewhere, but just speculating for the fun of it, it's sad.
right. And like save that for your mystery TV shows. I got all into the Pretty Little Liars series. And honestly, the theories were better than the actual outcome of the show. The thing is, that's fiction.
I
It's
read the
fiction.
books. I didn't watch the show. I couldn't
I
handle
only
it.
read the prequel book. I can't remember what it was called now, but I found it at Dollar Tree. And it's like
Nice.
from the perspective of the twin
Oh,
who's
okay.
pretending to be Allie or whatever. But anyways, I highly recommend listening to that. And actually, one of the panelists on there is an advocate for the Brandon Lawson disappearance, and that's the one with the 911 call that I've told you about. We haven't covered it on the show.
No, we have
That
not.
one,
Yeah.
that one intrigues me so much, especially because it didn't take place like too far from me. I don't remember exactly how far away San Angelo is, but not super far. Maybe like an hour or something. Either way, he had mentioned specifically about like, how people when they get like into like the theory modes and stuff like that start overanalyzing even like the family members and like you're not sad enough or you're too sad or you like why are you going out having fun,
Right.
like stuff like that.
As a person who has dealt with not murder, thank God, but I did lose somebody very fucking important to me in a very tragic way, very unexpectedly. There is no right way to fucking grieve,
Exactly.
and I was in shock, like, when the paramedics were in my house, one of the police officers was the guy I went to high school with. He was a grade or 2 above me. I don't know. I don't know. The point of the story is I focused on him instead of my life, and I was like, "Hey, I know him. He was a baseball player. He has,
Right.
like, 3 state champion rings. You should ask him about it." And the cop was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, Do you think I'm okay?"
Right.
And he was like, "Okay," and then I kept going on about this fucking cop guy I went to high school with, and I was like, "It's weird because like, when all the other things happen that I haven't spoken publicly about, but the last time a police officer came to my house, it was another guy from high school. I was like, "Does all the guys I went to high school with, like, work at this fucking police station?" He's like, "Ma'am,
Right.
let's get you to your room." I was like, "Okay." I was in shock. Shock
And
looks
even
different for everyone, and in addition to that, when everyone came up for her celebration of life, everyone was crying on me. I wasn't crying on anyone. I didn't cry at all. I don't cry in front of people first and foremost. It's not my thing. It makes me feel weak and vulnerable, and I don't like it. It makes me feel icky. Um, I don't even cry in front of my husband if I can help it. Yes, I need therapy. I'm fully fucking aware. But beyond that,
we all.
like, don't we all? And beyond that, like, everyone was like, "You're so strong. You're so strong." I couldn't do it. You don't know what you can do until you fucking have to.
Right. And I can
And
just imagine if it was,
if
thankfully
it
it was
was
not, but if
something
it had been
more dark
something,
and more sinister,
it would be, well, at the celebration of life, she was going around laughing and taking pictures of people, which, I mean, you took, like, a picture, but you get what I'm saying, like,
I just
that can
one
be
picture with my friends
it
who
can
were never in
be
the same room at
so
the same time.
scrutinized
Yeah. Oh,
and torn
but it
apart.
it was still scrutinized and torn apart by certain people, and,
Right.
like, some people
And
were just like, at my book signing, "Well, you shouldn't have a book signing just, 20 days after you lost your child." And I was like, "Well, go fuck yourself. I have to do something to entertain myself on my birthday instead of sitting. I have to have a reason to get, like, clothes on and take a
exactly.
shower." Like, I had to have a
Exactly.
reason to put myself in water and bathe. Like, I had to get out of my fucking house. I had to. You don't know what people are going through, so cut people some fucking slack. And maybe, here's a thought, stay in your lane.
At the end of the day,
It
you
boils
can't
down to caring,
theorize your way. Yeah, it boils down to caring, but also you can't theorize your way into making it more entertaining for you,
right? Like, "Oh,
because it might be
someone's
like,
tragedy is
"Oh,
not a comedy to you."
here's maybe this." I'm trying to think of, like, an example that's, like, real life without getting.
Well,
Okay, let's
like
go to the
JonBenet
Gabby.
Ramsey.
Yeah, that is a good example.
JonBenet Ramsey, everything was scrutinized to the point to where even
People think
after
she was
her family,
sacrificed for Satanist rituals,
right?
like,
Even after her family was completely fucking cleared, people still pointed the finger at her family members.
right,
Until her mom died, she was told probably multiple times a day that she murdered her daughter. That's sad, because 'cause we'll
yeah,
never know what happened.
that
Well, I
was
mean,
one of the
and
things they
I
talked
hope we
about.
find out one day what happened, but, like, right now, we don't know what happened, and for that woman, maybe she was completely innocent, maybe she wasn't, to go to her grave, if she was innocent, hearing, "You murdered your child, you covered up your child's murder," like, every day from the day that it happened until the day that she passed, that's horrible.
Right, and one of the things that they talked about on the CrimeCon panel, I don't remember who was speaking at the time, but they had mentioned, uh, shortly after the Chris Watts case, which if you didn't follow it, I didn't follow it at the time other than, like, kind of knew it was going on, but, uh, they're like, if you ever watch the interviews with Chris Watts, he's obviously lying, like, body language, like, the things he says, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's red flags about him lying. And on the CrimeCon panel, somebody had mentioned there was another case where a woman had died, and a husband gave an interview, and you could tell he was kinda, like, uncomfortable because, like, he's upset. Well, missing or dead, I don't remember. Either way, something had happened to his wife, and automatically the people in the comments were all, "Well, he clearly did it."
Okay, let's go to that. Going back to fiction, we covered Gone Girl as
We haven't covered it yet.
We haven't released it yet, but we've covered it, where that's gonna be our next book club book, and, I finished it. Spoilers. It's not really spoilers, it's been out forever. Also, so has the movie. In synopsis, a woman goes missing. The husband is blamed. Was he perfect? Fuck no. Was she conniving? Fuck yes. And I'm not saying like that has anything to do with true crime, but what I'm getting at is they painted the picture so perfectly in the book that the husband was guilty that you believed it.
And statistically speaking, a lot of times it is somebody close to the victim, whether it be a spouse or whatever. That's why there's always the jokes of like the husband did it or whatever.
Well, like,
Because
I watched
statistically speaking, it is. If you watch Forensic Files, every other episode is woman has her husband killed for the life insurance. Husband has his wife killed for the life insurance, or because they had an affair and they want to run off and start a new life. Whatever. You know, like it statistically speaking, it's valid, but it doesn't mean that that is the only truth.
Be a sibling, like it could be children murdering their parents. It could
be a random break-in.
It could be a lot of things. So, I mean, while it's cool that there are armchair detectives out there that actually help solve real cases and they do real work.
Like what happened with the Zodiac killer, which we haven't covered.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for more information. Come on.
Right. But it's just one of those things like not every theory is accurate, not every theory is valid, and no theory is comical.
I was going to say, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your theory is, it's real people. You're not wondering who done it and find out next week on the series finale.
No, it's not an episode of
It's
The
real
Bachelor.
people. It's real people. And that's what it all boils down to. That's what Sarah Turney and the rest of the guests panel at CrimeCon, almost like Comic-Con, at CrimeCon was. Which again, highly recommend you listen to everything she's done. I love her. I love following her. But it all just boils down to caring about people and treating the families, the victims, survivors, everybody with respect and understanding.
Not even just that. You should know the names of the victims if you're going to talk about the case. If you're going to be like, oh, Ted Bundy, okay, give me a name of a victim. Just one name.
Kathy Kleiner.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's just.
Unfortunately, that's the only name I can ever remember.
Yeah.
But he had
a lot of victims.
That's not from my lack of trying. I'm just horrible with names.
I can meet someone 6 times. Fun fact about me, if you have met me, you know this to be true. You could introduce me to Susan. I hear Sally. Her name will forever be Sally, and it'll take me 9 years to remember that her name is Susan.
Oh. Either way.
It's a real problem I have.
But either way, I feel it's something that everybody who can be into true crime, find it interesting, want to watch, want to fall asleep to Forensic Files, because first of all, that narrator's voice is soothing. But
yes.
You can like enjoy listening to our podcast or other true crime podcasts, whatever.
And that doesn't make you a bad person.
No, absolutely not. Even if you're just like, hey, so we've never gone really deep into these cases. We always are just like, hey, we should care about these people. And like, this is horrible that these things happen, but we've never been like
doing a 4-part episode.
Right. Like deep dive, like super thorough, because we're not journalists. But you can be entertained by that kind of thing, but just be aware of that line before you cross into the quirky girl wearing the t-shirt with Charles Manson's face on it, talking about how cool he was.
Oh, I wish I could have been one of Charlie's girls. No, fuck you. Fuck you.
Here's the thing. Charles Manson is like a big thing that got me into true crime, because there was a voice clip of him in the haunted house soundtrack, the haunted house I worked in. And the reason it was in the haunted house soundtrack is because it's just fucking out there. It's terrifying. Things he was saying, because he's talking about how he never personally killed anybody.
Right.
He was still a monster. You know what I mean? I'm not going around with Charlie's face on my shirt talking about how great he is.
No.
It just made me, it was that whole like, wow, you're right. He didn't kill anybody. Like, that's so bizarre. Like, how did he convince these people? Like, it's that trying to make sense of it thing.
Yep. So before we lead into our next case, just keep in mind when you listen to us that we are trying to be as thoughtful and as ethical as we can when we cover these cases. we want you to also try to, maybe pursue that in your own life when you talk about true crime cases
Yeah, that was
or
another thing
anything,
that,
because it's real people, it's real life, and it may not have happened to you, but it sure as fuck happened to somebody.
right, and I was gonna say that was another thing that Sarah Turney had talked about in that panel, was talking about, like, when people are like, "Well, what can I do?" You all might not have a true crime podcast, but you listen to true crime podcasts. So it starts with you. If you think we're being unethical, send us an email explaining why. Don't be hateful about it, but explain why so we can learn. If you're listening to a show that you're like, you know what, they kind of bother me the way they talk about this, stop listening to them. Stop giving them the attention.
Yeah, like, this is stupid, but it goes somewhere, I swear. It's not just ADD. I seen somebody bitching about Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star back in the day when they did their first collab and all the, like, YouTube video series, etc. And then they were like, "Well, Jeffree Star is just a garbage person, blah 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 blah. If Shane Dawson's supposed to be such a good person, let's look into his past." And then turns out Shane Dawson has some major skeletons in his closet too. Cool, thanks. But my point is, it said if you want to change the way these people have influence, you have to quit giving them the influence. You have to
Right.
quit liking their videos. You have to quit watching their videos. You have to quit following them on Instagram and Snapchat and all the fucking things, because they make money off of that. I mean, we don't make any fucking money, but other people do.
Right. And so the point is, just try to be aware. And even if you're not worried about the consumerism side of it, you yourself, do you find yourself like, I mean, I talked about Brandon Lawson. That case has just intrigued me so much. I've never been like, oh, well, he must have done this and like come up with these theories that like that's the all end all truth of it or whatever. But it does intrigue me. But if you find yourself in a position where you have a case like that you're hung up on, and then you have these wild theories, or you go looking for answers and find wild theories, don't give into it. We saw it a lot with Gabby Petito. There was like these huge conspiracy theories about how he murdered these other women and she saw it and he had to kill her to cover it up. And then he was hidden in his parents' flower beds. And like, like it was like this outlandish stuff. And it's like, hey, I know for a fact at least one of Gabby's friends is on TikTok. She's pretty big on there. She posts like grieving videos. Sometimes it shows up on my For You page. Like their families see that. The
Yeah.
victims' families see that. The victims' friends see that.
And one day,
Shit, even the perpetrator's family sees it. Like the family
and God
didn't kill
forbid,
people.
it's a woman who has children or a man who has children. One day their kids are going to be old enough to see this shit too.
Right. And
And
it's
to
like
listen to
just
these
be aware
podcasts
of
and TikTok videos. It's just be
yeah,
kind, be compassionate.
and realize it's real people. It's like we said, because we ask you guys all the time to send us your stories. And you always kind of say it like, ooh, we want to read them. And like that is very much true with all the
It's
paranormal stuff. Like
I was
I
gonna say
eat that
mostly
shit up.
paranormal. Yeah.
But we tried to emphasize on the Aurora movie theater shooting episode that we understand from personal experience that true crime affects true people. And so we're not asking you to send us stories about your cousin's friend from elementary school who was murdered
We won't
to like think
sensationalize
it's
your
so
sadness.
cool.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I can't believe. Or here's even another example from us personally. We had the great grandson of H.H. Holmes on here, and we were very excited about that. But we were not excited that it's, oh my God, a murderer's family member. We were excited that he is very big advocate on finding the truth in his ancestors' life.
And not even just is he big on finding the truth, he's big on the justice for the families.
Victims. Yeah.
And he's not just a cool guy, but like, I don't know.
In
It
his
was
own
really
way, he's
interesting to see that
advocating.
it's interesting to see that somebody can come from a monstrous gene pool and not also be a monster.
Right. And like try to come to terms with being related to somebody
Oh yeah.
so horrible, as well as being like, but hey, I think that because if you haven't listened to the episode, basically there's a theory that H.H. Holmes may have been Jack the Ripper. And it's not like oh my God, like we have to connect these because it'd be so cool if he was. It's, hey, this very, very old unsolved case could be solved. Can we just look into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
and like, bring closure, even though it's been so long.
Yeah. I wanted to touch real quick on the woman I said that I knew who disappeared. Her name is Peggy McGuire. We'll post in the show notes uh, a link if you guys have any information, any at all, if you're in the Eufaula area of Oklahoma and you happen to know anything, please reach out. Her family misses her. All right.
Absolutely.
So, Lindsay, tell me about the Clown Motel.
Yes, the Clown Motel. So, flashback. Or let's go Golden Girls. Picture it. United States, 2020. Quarantine. No.
Quarantine 2020.
Yes.
Right.
But so I've mentioned on here before about my kids. Like,
we never did our announcement about what was so important about my birthday besides, the fact that I was born.
and it is relevant to
It is relevant to this story. So, drum roll. Why were you going somewhere in 2020?
We had to go pick up our youngest daughter, who is now legally adopted.
She's officially a beehee, which is like I cried on that fucking adoption call. Like,
yeah, because Court was on Zoom.
It was on Zoom, so which is better in my opinion, just because everyone could be there.
Everyone could be there. Like my family in Kentucky were all there. Like it was fantastic. And then we celebrated with an Encanto themed cake.
If I wasn't terrified of going to jail, I would have like screen recorded it, but I think it would have told them, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like, I didn't know any of that, but yeah, it was really neat to be able to celebrate with everybody there, like witnessing it and whatnot. But
so that little pterodactyl you randomly hear sometimes in our background that we
and like
we cut out all of it.
The little three-nager.
The three-nager for sure.
Yeah.
That's
she's lived with us for a while. Like, there's no doubt she is my daughter. Like, I sometimes forget that I did not birth her.
And that's fine. I forget birth period because like
right. Who wants to remember that? But yeah, so that meant that back in June of 2020 with quarantines, the only way to get her with us, because we knew at that point for months that she was going to be placed with us.
They weren't flying anyone at that point. Like,
but y'all know how it was back then. Like, right? It was like severe lockdowns. So we made the 22-hour straight drive up, stayed there to get it all situated, all paperwork and whatever.
They stayed in a separate facility at someone's home just because of quarantine stuff, but they still
we stayed in an RV.
Yeah.
For quarantine. Yeah. It was like a whole thing. But
I don't want anyone to think that you didn't follow like actual protocols. Like you were just like, fuck it, we're gonna go on vacation and do things. Like that's not what she did.
Right, no. Well, that's why we drove 22 hours straight, because we didn't even know if hotels were open, if hotels were safe. Which now we know, like, at least I think most hotels are pretty strict on their cleaning protocols.
Right.
But it was all brand new then. We didn't know what was safe and what wasn't, and we were like, we're just gonna drive and take turns, and like my husband would sleep and I'd drive and vice versa and all that. And then, but on the drive back, when we were on our way back home, I had been texting my family updates because we were driving 22 hours straight. And so, they wanted to make sure we weren't falling asleep and whatnot. And at one point I explained where we were, like what, like it took us some strange routes sometimes, and so I'm like, oh, like it has us driving through a national forest on dirt roads right now. Like it was really weird. Bizarre.
Well, and what's funny is when I come visit you, I swear there has got to be some
easier way than all these weird little back highways and small towns.
I feel like I'm driving through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre shit, or the Hills Have
Eyes, or like
Eyes,
Devil's Rejects or something like that.
Something like that. Like it's fucking
Devil's Rejects is Texas.
It's fucking scary. And like, what if I got a flat tire? There's no cell service. Nobody can help me. So I understand that stressor of not being able to stop.
Right. And so, like I was updating my family, and at one point my dad must have just been looking at the map app on his phone and he was like, it looks like you're coming. He's like, it looks like you're coming. I think we had talked about needing gas, like how we weren't in dire need yet, but you know how it is on road trips when you're in an unfamiliar area. You want to get gas before you need to.
Absolutely.
Or it is the start of a horror movie.
Yep.
And so he's looking at the map and he's like, you should be coming across a town called Tenopah here soon. And like, there should be gas there. And then he
Daddy's
says,
so
he
smart.
throws in, right? Then he throws in, oh, apparently it's also the home to the world famous Clown Motel. And I was like, hold up. Like Ghost Adventures, Clown Motel. And of course I'm Googling and turned out it's right there on that highway. So like it was like gas stations on the left, you drive a little bit more, right there on the right's Clown Motel.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I was like pumped. And obviously, since driving 22 hours straight, we did not stay other than getting gas and like we picked up food at the gas station or whatever. But oh, it was so cool. And so, which it's funny because I remember driving by the kids being like, oh, that's so freaky. Because
is there like a
if you
legit clown on the pole or whatever?
Yeah. Like, I'll show you. I have pictures I'll post on like our Instagram, like when this drops and everything. And like there's like a huge clown outside, and there's like a clown on like the roadside sign that says like Clown Motel or whatever. And
yeah, was there a clown outside like Ronald McDonald style, like waving you in? Because that would make me
no.
smooth the fuck
Or
out.
like I bet there was on the Ghost Adventures clips though. They always throw in those really weird fictionalized clips to make it scarier.
Mac Aggins and his team of ghost hunters. I can't say his name because I don't want to get sued. Like straight up, don't even think he knows we exist. But like, I'm not trying to.
We have name dropped him before though.
Oh, have we? All right, well, Zach Baggins. But either which
way, with Jeff Mudgett, we mentioned him because
because they were in the same location.
Because they did the H.H. Holmes place where he murdered the children.
Castle.
So the Clown Motel.
I'm ridiculous. But yeah, the Clown Motel's cool because, well, it's only cool if you're not scared of clowns, I guess.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
I mean,
So it's really funny. Really funny because the kids were like all creeped out as we drive by it. And if you all remember, I swear I said it on the show once. And if I didn't, this is a fun little story. My middle child, my 7-year-old, she has told me in the past that she is terrified of clowns except for killer clowns. And then
killer clowns.
I was like, except for killer clowns? But I guess it's because with killer clowns, you know what you're getting. They're upfront about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm not scared of clowns, so I don't get the clown thing. But my friend Brandy, if you listen, hi Brandy. I swear no one listens, but we have like all these countries. We'll get into it in a minute. But Brandy is terrified of clowns. Like, I thought something was funny because it was a Pennywise meme, but it was like super shitty and like super funny, and I got a giggle out of it. I turned my phone around and she screeched and she's like, "Ah, clown!" I was like, "Whoa! I'm sorry, what?
What's the matter, kid? Don't you like clowns?"
Right. And so
we make you laugh. Aren't we fucking? Sorry, I love Captain Spaulding. Rest in peace, Sid Haig.
Right. Oh, such a good movie. All of them are. Listen, if you want to hang with us, you have to like Rob Zombie movies. Straight up. Rob Zombie makes the best movies. And I can't wait for the Munsters to come out. Like, yes. Oh, Sherry Moon with the half blonde, white, whatever, and then half black wig. Like, on Instagram.
I just love her. She's perfect.
She is perfect. Like, ugh. But Rob Zombie, fun fact about me, I liked Cupcake Wars a lot. It's problematic.
I think we've talked about this before on the show. About the Rob Zombie on Cupcake Wars.
Maybe if we did, sorry to bother you again with it. But he's a vegan, and I didn't know that till I watched Cupcake Wars. I was like, that's so fucking cool. People think he's such a bad guy, but he like literally loves animals so much he won't eat them.
He's like a little sweetheart with just like
he's just a creepy
heavy music
with a weird sense of taste to some people. To me,
loves horror.
Fantastic. He loves horror. He loves like the 70s. I don't know. He's just epic. I love Rob Zombie.
I mean, the man's got a song called "Everybody's Fucking in a UFO."
Yes.
Now I'm gonna have that stuck in my head.
El Super Bisto, which is like one of the funniest fucking cartoons in the whole. I mean, listen, if you don't know what El Super Bisto is, and you like South Park, you're gonna love that. It's dirty, it's funny, it's a good time. But yeah.
But the Clown Motel.
Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
So the whole reason, aside from having a fear of clowns, there is potential haunting there, hence it being on Ghost Adventures. Although, let's be real, Zach just wanted to be able to freak out because he has chlorophobia or whatever the word is. I don't have it in front of me. The fear of clowns. So I kind of feel like I like to hope that Aaron put this up because
Aaron,
hey, we should go here. Yeah, so it's like, hey, Zach, we should go here. I like to dream that that's how it went down.
Right.
But the whole reason the Clown Motel exists goes into the history of Tanopa. So I'm going to get into that a little bit. So Tanopa is a little town in the desert of Nevada, and it was established in 1900. And basically, a man by the name of Jim Butler accidentally stumbled upon silver-rich ore in the area, and it says by throwing a stone at a donkey in frustration and noticing that it was unusually heavy.
He tried to hit an ass and it didn't go the way he planned.
And the rock was heavy, so he's like, shit, this is silver.
That's hilarious.
And so a bunch of mining companies come in.
Him a fancy ass?
Oh. So the Belmont Mining Company is founded in 1902, and therefore Tanopa becomes a thriving mining community, as everything was kind of back in that day going west. And so in 1901, in the land that is now directly beside the Clown Motel was the Sonopa Cemetery.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so buried there, of course, are like people who like died in the mines. There are victims of the 1905 Sonopa Plague. Ooh. And there's victims from the 1911 Belmont mine fire. And famous to the area sheriff, Thomas Logan, was shot while trying to save others in a local brothel, and he's buried there. So among others, there's also George Devil Davis, who was the first African-American man to live in Tanopa, and he was murdered by his wife, who shot him in the back. And although...
Does it say why she shot him? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, apparently, just moving on, it says she only served a prison sentence of 1 year due to the extensive abuse he'd inflicted upon her. So that took a very sad turn. That I probably should have read ahead on that.
They're psychotic. And
right. All of this information, by the way, is from the Clown Motel's website. Yeah.
Nice.
There is also a person by the name of Bina Veralt, which I don't know if I said that right, of New York, who made national headlines after she and a friend made a pact to become wealthy widows.
Hell yeah. It's like
and they
Golden
collected
Girls
clothes
next
and jewels. Right? They collected clothes and jewelry to today's value of over $2.5 million from men that they had seduced.
Fuck yeah.
Bina went on the run.
Of course
and ended up in Tanopa and died of alcoholism. Bina was just out there living her best life.
That's my fucking like golden year dream right there. When Alan dies before me and Landon's like done with my shit, I'm gonna find all.
It's gonna be me and you in a home. We're gonna be in Rosewood Manor.
We're gonna be in the Rosewood Manor, but we also need like fancy jewelry and like those like rich widow robes that are on Amazon. I mean, come on. I want one of those robes right now.
Or the feathers.
Yes, I want one right now. It's problematic.
So I had mentioned with the cemetery that there was the 1905 Sonopa Plague. In 1905, there was a terrible disease that went through Tanopa, which is interesting that it's like one town specific, but maybe back then the towns were just so far apart.
Maybe.
And it starts as chest pain and led to death within hours.
Damn.
And it says that they had to do dissections to try to figure out what's going on these. And the livers of the victims were black and hard like stone.
Fuck.
We know now that was likely pneumonia from poor sanitation. But back then, we've talked about that on the Waverly Hills episode. Like back then, the same as it is now, and with COVID or whatever, it's like it's brand new. You don't know what's going on. It's like a crazy time.
Oh my God. What are they going to find out in like 15 to 20 years about COVID? And we're all going to go, are you fucking serious? If we would have just XYZ, then this wouldn't have happened. We could have just washed our fruit better and our vegetables, like something basic, but I swear that's probably going to be the cause of the plague, like something dumb.
Something like that, where it's like, we would have no way of knowing, but in the future, it's going to look so simple.
Right.
Then in 1911, on the 23rd of February, which is not far from the time of this episode coming out.
Yeah.
There was a fire that was identified deep in the Belmont mines.
Nice.
And it was said that it kind of, yeah, the newspapers reported that the fire started at the 1,166 foot level. So that's pretty damn deep.
Yeah. What would it call? Oh, you know what? Maybe somebody lit a cigarette back in the day. Like they didn't know better.
I don't know. I have not read all of this, so we will see if it says. William F. Big Bill Murphy was among the men who volunteered to go down and load up the miners. Down he went, returning to the surface with a cage of rescued men. For a second time, he went into the now smoke-filled pit to rescue his colleagues. Despite the fumes, he was determined to go down for a third time, but it took a little bit longer for the cage to return to the surface. Eventually, the cage emerged full of weary men, but no Bill. One of the semi-conscious men said someone fell out of the cage on his descent. Everyone knew it was Bill. His last known words before his final descent were, "Oh, sorry, I just saw this. I'm going to cry." "Well, boys, I've made 2 trips and I'm nearly all in, but I'll try again." In total, 17 men lost their lives that day, including Bill, who was 28. And his grave is in the Sonopa Cemetery and reads, "Died while saving others." And there is actually a monument to Bill outside of the Sonopa post office. There is also a mural depicting his funeral procession on the side of A Bar L Western Store. That's sweet.
That is sweet.
Apparently, over the years, there were a lot of fires in the Sonopa area. And
I live in Oklahoma. Fires make sense because it's really wet or it's really dry, and there's really no in between, and there's always wind.
I mean, if you've ever been to Nevada, it's
I haven't,
literally
unfortunately.
desert.
I haven't been very many places, but
I got married in Vegas.
Nice.
So I've been like all over Nevada now. But so in 1942, there was another Belmont fire, and a man by the name of Clarence David passed away in it, who is buried in the Sonopa Cemetery, and he just so happened to have a clown collection.
Ugh.
So his children, Leona and Leroy.
Interesting thing to collect, I'm just saying.
I mean, everyone's got their thing.
Right. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. It's just not for me.
Right. And so in 1985, his children, Leona and Leroy, opened a motel next to the cemetery where their beloved father was buried to display his collection. So it was like in honor of their dad.
So is their dad
which is really
sweet?
It? I don't know if they ever say, because like I've seen that Ghost Adventures episode.
Right.
And I don't remember them ever saying who the ghost is.
Well, no, because I mean, they would have to do research, Lindsay. They do research. I'm not being a bitch. Just kidding. Ha 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 ha. ha, ha.
The Clown Motel was purchased by Bob and Deborah Perchetti. So in 1995, Bob and Deborah Perchetti bought the Clown Motel from Leroy and Leona and ran it for 2 decades. And everyone always said that he was a mild-mannered and benevolent gentleman and just like really took care of the hotel, took care of the guests, and it was great. And then in 2015, Zach Baggins brought his crew to the Clown Motel, as we have already mentioned. And it says that they were able to capture like a dark silhouette. A voice on the spirit box said, "Hello, it turned on."
Ooh.
And of course, the thing that sticks in my head is in the lobby or whatever where the clown collection is that it's like a life-size clown thing. I don't know if you
Like a
would call it like a
replica?
figurine or a stuffed animal. I don't know. It's like a big
Yeah.
doll, I guess.
Okay.
And its hand moves on its own. And like you see it on the camera. Like it's like hand was like on its lap and falls down off
I
its
don't
lap or
like
whatever.
that.
Right. And then and so after that episode aired, like everyone knows about the Clown Motel now.
Right.
You know, and so everyone's booking it, donating more clowns to it, and like it really takes off. And then there's actually been horror movies like inspired
By the
by the
Clown
Clown
Motel.
Motel.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then in 2017, Bob Perchetti decided to retire and take some time with his wife, kids, grandchildren, like all of that, and sold the motel to
Zach Baggins?
no, to a like what's the word? Hotelier or whatever, like people who do hotels.
Okay, like a hotel concierge service or whatever.
I think it's just like a family who does a lot with
Okay.
hotels. A hotelier, I think is the word. But it's bought by hoteliers, the Maher family. And I apologize if I said that incorrectly. I looked it up, and of course, it's one of those names that has like several pronunciations.
Right.
But it seemed like maybe that was the correct one. But anyways, they have since like renovated it where it's still true to its roots. But then there's also like twists where like there's like horror themed rooms now.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so there's like a Pennywise room.
Fuck yeah.
And like and I'm wanting to say, I can't remember now off the top of my head, so I don't have the pictures in front of me. There is like other horror movies, but I think they all have like a clown twist.
Nice.
Or something, and then the other rooms that aren't the horror themed are still just like all decked out in clowns. So it's like given
they took
to
it
the
and ran with it basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so and like everyone was already like, oh, that's so creepy. So they're like, yeah, let's make it horror.
Nice.
Then. And what's really funny is I mentioned earlier my middle kid being like, I'm scared of all clowns but killer clowns. So despite the fact of her saying that, and when we drove by it, her being visibly creeped out.
Right.
When I was doing the research for this and she saw like the websites, like I said, all the information's from the Clown Motel's website. She's like, oh, we need to go there. I was like, we've been there. Like, do you not remember? I even showed her like the pictures I took.
Right.
And she was like, well, and I was like, I thought you were scared of clowns. She said, but do I like horror? Yes. Which, by the way, I don't let her watch horror movies.
Right. The scariest thing she's seen is
we've played
in, like,
a horror game that I was under the impression it was for kids until we started playing it. And at a later time, I noticed that the warning at the start, which I thought was for flashing that could cause seizures, was actually a warning that, like, it's graphic and terrifying.
Whoops.
And then...
I mean, Landon has watched House of a Thousand Corpses with me, and he just kept saying, hey...
We've watched the classic Halloween. Yeah, so that was really cool, even though we just drove by or whatever. It was really neat to get to see it. We also, on that drive, got to drive through the gold mining town that's on the same Goes Adventures episode. And
how nice.
That's all the same drive. We drove in through Roswell that I've mentioned before, and we drove by Area 51.
Fuck yeah, that's... I mean,
so it was just all around, like, a very eventful drive.
Right?
But yeah, that's the Clown Motel.
Well, that was really interesting. I'm glad you shared all that information with me. I've never been to Nevada, so I think it's really cool to know about an interesting attraction and like different things like that. Before we go, we have some big exciting news for our network. Our podcast owners, Josh and Stefan, will be now changing the name of their formerly known podcast as Fearscape to The Convergence Enigma with Josh and Stefan. It has been picked up by the Paranormal Radio Network, the UNX Network, and It's so fucking exciting. We are so excited for them. We are so proud of them. Their first episode will appear on February 23rd at 9 p.m. And the episodes will air every week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's super exciting. I mean, to know that our podcast network owners got picked up by a big network, that's so cool. So congratulations to Stefan and Josh. We're so proud of you. We're so glad to be a part of your network. Our next episode will be a bonus episode. It'll come out shortly. It's going to be talking about Gone Girl. And me and Lindsay will dive into that. And then we have a little tidbit. If you haven't listened to the Melanie Golding episode, where we cover her book, Little Darlings, might as well jump right the fuck on that bandwagon and get on that real quick. Because we have been in talks with the special someone. And we might have something special coming in the works soon. So, some epic shit to come. Woo!
Yes.
Beyond that, there's our birthday episode that's coming up. We have special shit in the works for that, for our 1
Yes,
year
St.
birthday.
Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. So we have a lot of fun stuff planned. Let me get my planner. And I can kind of give you an idea of the fun shit we have in store for you. So, like I said, we have the Gone Girl episode, which is going to be so much fun. It's going to be a bonus episode, but it'll be worth it. It's supposed to come out on Valentine's Day, but Lindsay, you want to tell them what happened on
Okay,
Valentine's
what happened
Day?
is we forgot to release the episode on Valentine's Day because that is life with us. But what's funny is I feel like it's kind of on brand for the characters because Nick would 100% for like not think to do something like that for Valentine's Day. And Amy would pretend like, of course, like who would think to do that for Valentine's Day, but then be seething inside. So it's on brand. So it's just, if you haven't read the book yet, read it and you'll understand what we mean. And it's perfect that we put it out late.
So Gone Girl's coming out soon. And then our next regularly planned episode will be March 4th, friends. And then the episode after that would be our St. Patrick's Day 1 year birthday episode. And then there will be more things in the works to come that are just going to be. I feel like our podcast is just getting bigger and bigger. Slowly but surely, like the little engine that could, we will make this podcast great. So if you like what you hear, please like us on Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play.
All the things.
Wherever you listen to wherever you can give us a review, leave us one. We want to hear from you, listeners. Email us.
Also, hello, Sweden and Scotland, our newest countries.
Right? How the fuck did that even happen? I'm France. I don't even know.
I don't know.
It's wild. I'm so excited. We put up an infographic on our Facebook and Instagram, maybe even Twitter. I didn't put the post out.
I think I put it on Twitter.
It shows everywhere people are listening, and it is blowing our minds. Just so we're clear, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you
for listening to us babble on and ramble and rant and be weird. Thank you for enjoying that.
Yes.
For the last almost year. What? That's crazy.
Almost. Oh, so crazy.
So, and if you have anything that you want us to cover, let a bitch know. Please.
Reach out to us on any of our socials or email us at gabbpodcast@gmail.com.
Every social is GABB Podcast. You can find us anywhere.
It's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Did you know we have a merch store? If you want merch that was created primarily by me, and then the logo was made by Laura, Lindsay's sister, which is like way better than my artwork. It's available on our merch store in our link tree in the show notes and on our website posts. Anything we post, we put the link tree there, or we at least try to remember. And without further ado, that wraps up our episode for this week. So until next time, stay spooky, listeners. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basement, a Fearscape Media podcast. Music by Stephen Timperley. Artwork by Laura Ramsey. Find us online at fearscapemedia.com/GABB podcast, or on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GABB podcast, or email us gabbpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Anna. Is that a new outfit? You look super cute.
It is. I just went to this really cute store in town called Mainstream Boutique.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a really awesome store. It's like my little hidden secret. It's locally owned by a really wonderful woman named Kim. She's the kindest, most genuine person I've ever met. It's a women's retail boutique that offers a unique selection of clothes and apparel and accessories for all generations. So teenagers to 20 and up. It's magic. I mean, we've talked for years about what do we wear? I don't know what to wear at this age. I don't want to look like a teenager. This store is the store that has changed my outlook on how I appear as an adult.
Oh, that's so cool.
You
said it's a local store?
Yeah, it's local to Shawnee, Oklahoma, but they do ship.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to get on that website. What's their website?
Their website is mainstreamboutique.com. They also have a Facebook page, which is Mainstream Boutique of Shawnee. They're a apparel and accessories for multi-generations. Their mission, which I really stand behind, is to empower, strengthen, and celebrate women in the world throughout fashion. And I think that's so...
Oh, I love that.
And
I'm going right now to check that out, especially if they ship. That's awesome.
It's mainstreamboutique.com or Mainstream Boutique of Shawnee. We'll put all the links in our bio, but I have an exclusive for you guys. Are you ready?
What?
I talked to the owner today. For our listeners only, you get 10% off your full ticket items.
Oh my God.
All full priced items when you ring up, 10% off, whether it's online or in person. And if you go in person, tell them we said, hey, they said to use the code GABB for a discount code. And if you use our discount code, you get 10% off all full price items of your entire ticket. How cool is that?
That is amazing. I can't wait to go check it out.
Well, the next time you come visit me, we'll have to have a shopping spree.
I'm in.
GABB is your promo code.